Srimad. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girdharadhari Gopi Janavallabha Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girdharadhari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girdharadhari Gopi Janavallabha Girdharadhari Jaisacinandana Braja Janaranjana Jaisacinandana Braja Janaranjana Jaisacinandana Braja Janaranjana Jaisacinandana Braja Janaranjana Jamuna Tira Vanacharim Jamuna Tira Vanacharim Jamuna Tira Vanacharim Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha, Radhanath, Radha, Radhanath, Radhe. Jaya Radha, Radhanath, Radha, Radhanath, Radhe. Jaya Giri Govardhan, Giri Govardhan, Giri Govardhan, Jaya Giri Govardhan. Jaya Gaura Hare, Gaura Hare, Gaura Hare, Jaya Gaura Hare. Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Gaura Haribo. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Shri Radharanath ki, Shri Giriraj Govardhan ki, Shri Gauranga Mahaprabhu Gaur Hari ki, Harinam Sankirtan ki, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Bhakti Vedanta Purpose ki, Srila Vedavyasa ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama, Hare Hare. So we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, continuing with the pastime. Lord Vishnu's appearance in the sacrificial arena. Canto 4, chapter 20, verse number 6. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chevam Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udiraye Nasta Prayasya Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavaduttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. Text number 6. Asamsakta Sharire Asmin Amuna Hutpadite Grihe Apatye Dravine Va Api ka kuryat mamatam buddha asam shakta sarire hasmin asam sakta sarire hasmin amunotpadite grihe amnunotpadite grihe apatye dravine vapi kakuryan mamatam buddha kakuryan mamatam buddha asam sakta sharire hasmin amunotpadite grihe apatye dravine vapi kakuryan mamatam buddha asam sakta sharire hasmin amutnotpadite grihe apatye dravine vapi kakuryan mamatam buddha. Asam sakta sharire hasmin amutnotpadite grihe apatye dravine vapi kakuryan mamatam buddha. Mother? Okay. Asam sakta, being unattached. Sharire, to the body. Asmin, thus. Amuna, by such a bodily conception. Utpadite, produced. Grihe, house. Apatye, children. Dravine, wealth. Va, or. Api, also. Ka, who. Kuryat, would do. Mamatam, affinity. Buddha, learned person. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. How can a highly learned person who has absolutely no affinity for the bodily conception of life be affected by the bodily conception in regard to house, children, wealth, and similar other bodily productions? Responsibly, how can a highly learned person who has absolutely no affinity for the bodily conception of life be affected by the bodily conception in regard to house, children, wealth, and similar other bodily productions? Purport. The Vedic ritualistic ceremonies are certainly meant to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu. However, by such activities one does not factually satisfy the Lord. Rather, with the sanction of the Lord, one tries to satisfy one's own senses. In other words, materialists who are actually especially interested in sense gratification are given permission or license to enjoy sense gratification by executing the Vedic ritualistic ceremonies. This is called Trigunya Vishaya Vedha. The Vedic performances are based on the three modes of material nature. Those elevated above the material conditions are not at all interested in such performances. Rather, they are interested in the higher duties of transcendental loving service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Such devotional service is called Nistraigunya. Devotional service to the Lord has nothing to do with material conception of bodily comfort. Om Jnana Timirindasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurumalitam Jaina Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Jaina Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamayham Tadati Swa Padantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yuta Padakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunath Anvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakhan Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagat Pate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Aripre Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyahevacha Patitanam Pavinebhyo Vaishnavabhyo Namo Namaha Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So we familiar with the pastime of Maharaj Prithu was performing this or sacrifice, and he wanted to do, 99 he had completed, and which was very pleasing to the Lord. As the Lord, here is a conversation between Lord Vishnu and Prithu Maharaj, and of course in the course of performing the 100th, something happened. Indra, we know the story. Indra had stolen the horse and come disguised and stolen the horse. And of course, this Maharaj Prithu became very angry, and and he wasn't very happy with the outcome of that. So, because he performed, of course, we know the Jagyapati of all sacrifices is Vishnu. So therefore he is present, because he was invoked to be present in the sacrifice. And he's speaking to Maharaj Parikshit in a very, like, I'd say, in a very reminiscent of, I was thinking when I was reading this, how Krishna was speaking in Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna. In the beginning of Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna, when he had so many challenges about not following the order of the Supreme Lord, and Krishna was very chastising him in so many ways, calling him harsh names. You're a coward, you're a fool. How has these impurities come upon you? They're not befitting a man, an Arya, one who knows the value of life. Anarya justam. Such words like that, very cutting, just to get Arjuna, to put him in line so he could speak Bhagavad Gita, and to give him the... Of course, Arjuna is also not an ordinary person, not a conditioned soul. He is a statesman. He's one of the greatest warriors. He's a householder. He's a prince. And most importantly of all, he is a devotee of Krishna, his friend, and a devotee of the Lord. Therefore, the Lord wants to, out of care, the Lord wants to put him on the right path, that he should not become, especially here the word using that, the modes of nature, trigunya, the three modes of material nature. They are very, very difficult to overcome when one is in conditioned life, and sometimes these modes depends how we are situated, in what mode, and we act accordingly. Isn't? And these modes govern every aspect, as mentioned in Bhagavad Gita. So many chapters covering the modes of nature, 14, 17, 18. The modes, they play a kind of condition. They condition us to a certain type of lifestyle, certain kind of. They influence us in so many ways. Even when we're desiring, the modes also play a part. Isn't? When we desire something, depends on what mode we're desiring, and the modes, they facilitate those desires. So Prithu being the king, of course, in contrast to Vena, Prithu was described as very, very honorable. Whereas Vena, he stopped all the sacrifices. He put a stop to so many, the Brahminical culture was compromised. Vedic sacrifices were compromised, were stopped. And as a result, there was no opulence, there was no growth of, there was no rainfall, and people became very dissatisfied with such a ruler. So when Prithu, he rectified all these things, he had to take the brunt of that and put everything right, and therefore he's glorified for that, and everything that he did was according to the in keeping with the culture, with the Vedic culture, and of course in submission to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Here the question is, like Vishnu, how can a highly learned person who has absolutely no affinity for the bodily concept of life be affected by the bodily conception in regard to house, children, wealth, and similar other bodily productions? So this is quite a quandary, isn't it? Prithu is, we see Prithu as a very elevated soul. Arjuna is also. But sometimes the Lord, he comes, and due to the illusory energy, just to make a point or to speak transcendental knowledge, he uses these personalities and make them seem like conditioned souls, so that for the benefit of the entire population of the world, or the janas, the population, the general mass of population, mass of people. Look, conditioned life means we are very much under the modes of nature, conditioned life, and influenced by these modes. Some persons are the mode of goodness, and they act accordingly, the mode of goodness. Some are in the mode of, very much in the mode of passion, and they act according to the modes of passion. And this is described very vividly, graphically, how the modes work, how they are influencing the living entity, who is kind of like a puppet. There was a nice book by Srila Prabhupada, the modes of material nature, and there in the front cover we see the modes are like puppeteers who are manipulating the puppets, isn't it? Whichever direction they're pulling string. Jai Sri Sri Radharadhanath Ki, Sri Giriraj Govardhan Ki, Sri Gauranga Mahaprabhu Gaur Hari Ki, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Yeah, so the modes, they are making us dance to their tune while in conditioned life. But do we stay conditioned? Do we want to stay conditioned and be under the modes of nature perpetually, lifetime after lifetime? No. Therefore, Bhagavad Gita, the revealed scriptures are there to help us. Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. All these books are there to help us to gravitate to a higher level of consciousness. And we have to take that very seriously. Take the message of this. And Krishna is using these personalities via the via medium to teach us about conditioned life, the futilities of conditioned life, the futilities of performing sacrifices such as these ritualistic ceremonies. The ritualistic are part of the Vedas. It says more than 90% of the Vedas deal with karma khandi activities and mode of goodness, mode of passion, mode of ignorance. And these are there. These are there. Even the black arts is in the Vedas. Performing ghost worship or worshipping some inauspicious thing. They're all part of the Vedas in the mode of this Vedas in the mode of ignorance, this Vedas in the mode of passion, this Vedas in the mode of goodness, and this Vedas in the mode of Sura Sattva. And a very small percent deals with that. In Srimad Bhagavatam, very small percentage deals with pure Sudha Bhakti, pure devotional service. Therefore we see that the majority of people, they are very much come under these modes of nature because they are suffering under these, or they don't know better, or they're in ignorance of their real nature. Most of the people, they don't know who they are. Even they may be very, in terms of material, erudite scholars and or PhDs or MSc or whatever, isn't? Or big presidents, big leaders of society. If they don't know who they are, then how will they lead? How will they lead people? How will they? It's like blind leading the blind. Prabhupada would say like that. Blind leading the blind, and they will fall into a ditch. There's a verse in Bhagavatam describes the Svavid Varahai Ostrai. Remember that verse? Svavid Varahai Ostrai. So those who are like hogs, dogs, camels, and asses, they worship people who are in the same, like dogs, hogs, asses, and camels. And Prabhupada gives a lengthy purport describing the nature of each, the dog, the pig, the ass, and the camel. And people with that mentality, people are with that mentality, ass-like mentality, camel-like mentality, dog-like mentality, like animals. A royal edition. In Kali Yuga, people are like a royal edition of animals. They may be very sophisticated in so many ways, but they are like a royal edition of animals. Yeah. So, how to take them out of that animalistic consciousness? Therefore, we have these great revealed scriptures. The great acharyas have come throughout the ages. The Supreme Lord has manifested himself in so many ways as in different avatars he's manifesting just to come to reinstate the message of Godhead. Yada yada I dharmasya. This is very typical in Bhagavad Gita. Whenever and whenever there's decline of religious principles, then it is evam parampara praptam. So whenever there's a this knowledge is coming in disciplic succession, evam parampara praptam. And Lord has to come from time to time to reinstate it, boy, because it says the science as it is appears to be lost. It's not lost, but it appears to be lost. That means it's kind of compromised, or it's watered down philosophy, religiosity. This is what we're getting in the material world. People want a compromised kind of philosophy or religion. That suits them, tailor-made for them. Dharma, hatha, moksha, kama. They want that type of dharma, some little bit of dharma. Artha, they want wealth. Therefore, they perform all these ritualistic ceremonies. It's there. So basically, the karma kanda portion is used by these such people to better their material life or to improve the material life for more sense gratification. For more sense gratification. And that's not the goal of life. The goal of life, Krishna, is not by austerities or by penance. I'm to be known. No. And he describes in the 6th chapter Bhagavad Gita the tapasvis, isn't the be a tapasvi, be a yogi. Be a yogi means be a bhakti yogi, not a karma yogi or a jnana yogi or a stanga yogi. Be a yogi, be a devotee, become a bhakti yogi. This is stressed and he says, this is in my opinion. Therefore we care, because Krishna says, in my opinion, and we care for that. We really expect that. Anybody can say, in my opinion, but who cares for their opinion? Like so many, we read so many versions of Bhagavad Gita giving their opinion by so many scholars who are recognized materially in the world. Great scholars, but Prabhupada would say, these are rascals. They've distorted the message of Bhagavad Gita, of Krishna. They've compromised the position of Krishna. And therefore, the science of Bhagavad Gita is kind of covered. Therefore, the Lord is present, so we could put things right. Therefore, we were there in the Vyasa Puja yesterday, and we listened to a class by Bhakti Charya Swami, and he was saying this point about what was that? Just skipped my mind. Anyway, I'll come back to that just now. Yeah. So in the 14th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, the Lord Rajas Tamas Chabi Bhuya Sattvam Bhavati Bharata Rajas Sattvam Tamas Chaiva Tamas Sattvam Rajas Tata. This is describing how the modes, they jostle for prominence on the conditioned soul. Sometimes it says the mode of goodness becomes prominent. When the mode of goodness, that means it defeats the other modes of passion and ignorance, O son of Bharat. And sometimes the mode of passion is prominent. And that when that is prominent, then it defeats the mode of goodness and ignorance. And then when ignorance is prominent, it defeats goodness and passion. And then Krishna is saying, in this way, there's always competition. They're competing with each other for supremacy. And the poor conditioned soul is just helplessly caught in this web of the modes of nature. Therefore Krishna is constantly, riling, cries above the modes, Arjuna. Get out of the modes of nature. Get out. That's your weakness. And that is why we, in this verse is saying, Vishnu is saying to Arjuna, how can a highly learned person who has absolutely no affinity for the bodily concept of life be affected by the bodily conception in regard to a house, children, wealth, and similar other bodily productions? Unless one is completely free from that consciousness, or in the mode of pure goodness, on the transcendental platform where one transcends all these material desires. The material desires will always be there. Desires will always be there. It's part of the psyche of the living entity. One cannot live without desires. Krishna Bhakta Nishka Ata Eva Shanta. Krishna is saying the pure devotee, the devotee is always peaceful. Why is he always peaceful? Because he's free from desires. When we have material desires, we become restless. Isn't? We become restless. We want this. When we get that, we want something, like a child. A child sees a toy, isn't? And immediately he wants that toy, and he gets that toy, and a few, it's a novelty, it's thrown away. Then he wants another toy, and then it all just becomes useless, a lot of garbage. He outgrows it, isn't? Till he grows up into, and as for bigger toys like fancy cars, that mentality still is there. When we grow up, when we're in adult life, that same consciousness gravitates to more material things in a bigger way, isn't? From these toys, big toys, small toys to big toys. So how to become free from that? Krishna Bhakta Nishka Hatha Eva Sha. As long as we free from material desire. Not that we don't desire. Devotees have desires also. The desire to be a great servant. It could be a servant of the Lord, a servant of the Vaishnavas. That's a good desire. Servant of your spiritual master, how to serve. We can pray like that. We can desire like that. Isn't? We can desire. Or how can we chant more quality? We can desire like that. Or how we can, whatever aspect in devotionals, cooking, isn't? Improve our cook. We can desire. We can pray to give us intelligence like that. That's not a material desire. That's not a fruit of desire. Whereas material life is bhukti, mukti, siddhikami, sakali ashanta. Lord Chaitanya is saying those are bhukti, those who want material well-being. Bhukti, mukti, those who want liberation. Bhukti, mukti, siddhis, those who want mystic perfection like the yogis. Bhukti, mukti, siddhikami, those who want bodily sense gratification, who are lusty. So they pray, they do all these ritualistic ceremonies. They're bound by that to increase their sense enjoyment. And the demigods are there to fulfill that. But the demigods cannot give you liberation. They can give you all these things, but they cannot deliver you from these things. So only the Supreme Lord is Mukta Purush, is the giver of liberation. He's the giver of liberation. Of course, through the medium of the pure devotee of the Lord. Pure devotee is also desiring like that. Pure devotee does not come to fulfill your material desires. Your spiritual master is not there to fulfill your material desires. Even though you may have so many material desires. No, that's not his business. His spiritual master is there to fulfill your spiritual upliftment, to take you on higher and higher, on higher levels, so that you can be free from this material world. And this is what Vishnu is the Lord is wants to uphold that. So this is the mood throughout Bhagavad Gita. Throughout, there is always this mood. Krishna wants us to become free from karma. You have to become nishkam, akam. As long as we desire things, this karma is there. Although it may be good karma. Good karma means what? You will go to the higher planets. You will enjoy more. You will live longer, or more than the material world. You'll have more beautiful, more palatial, more abundance. But when that wears out, one has to come back again to the material world. So good karma is binding, and what to speak of bad karma is also binding. It just keeps us stuck here, rooted to this material world. So Krishna is saying, ha karma, become free from akama sama kamova. Give up this. Whether we have akama sarva kama, whether we have desires or we don't have desires, whether we want liberation, by all means we should approach him. Not via the medium of the demigods. So the demigods cannot give you immunity from material life. Well, they just increase your material life and keep. Therefore, Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, he said, such persons who worship, they are not very intelligent. What's the word he uses? Less intelligent. They are less intelligent, or they have no bereft of intelligence. Because they cannot see the bigger picture. They cannot see holistically that we have to get out. The whole goal of human life is to become free from this material life and go back home, back to Godhead. That is the goal. Is to go back home, perfect this life, make inquiries. What's the inquiry? So we should. The moment we get human life means we have to make inquiry. Atato Brahma Gigyas. Atato Brahma Gigyas means make inquiry about the absolute truth. We should make. That is human life. That is. If we're not using that human life for that, then we are wasting it. Wasted life. We get a human body and we waste it. We come in ignorance and we live in ignorance. We live this body in ignorance, and that's very, very sorrowful for a human being. Because human beings are different from animals. Human beings have a more developed consciousness. Not that animals have no consciousness. They are there. They have consciousness. But they cannot rationalize like a human being. What is right, what is wrong, who am I, who is God, what is my relationship with God. Animal cannot. That is the difference. But animals may do things that eating, sleeping, mating, defending. It's there. But when a human being just has a human body just to do these things, eating, sleeping, mating, defending, then he's no better than the animal. Or sometimes we say he's just a polished animal. No matter how sophisticated ways he may devise of eating, sleeping, mating, defending, still he's an animal. because he's not using that intelligence that to make that ultimate inquiry of the absolute truth. Where am I going from here? What is my relationship? This sambandha, what is my duty, and what is my goal? These things are very much discussed in these scriptures, in revealed scriptures. So there's many Bhagavad Gita gives so many wonderful. In Bhagavad Gita, 15th chapter, text 10, it says, "The foolish cannot understand how a living entity can quit his body, nor can they understand what sort of body enjoys under the spell of the modes of nature. But one whose eyes are trained in knowledge can see all this." So we have to become like that. Jnana chakshus. Jnana chakshus. Chakshusa. Jnana chakshus. If we be trained in knowledge to see like that. And only through transit can we rise above the modes, transcend the modes. And we know Krishna and how he describes these modes. They're very, very difficult. Very, very difficult. The modes are very complicated. To understand the modes or to come under the spell of the modes, very, very complicated. And when we caught like that, then it's like very difficult to come out of it, as Krishna is saying, Daivisha gunamai mama maya duratraya. Mamekam tarantite. Only by surrender to him can we become free from the modes. Only by the surrender to Krishna, to the transcendental knowledge. When we engage in this transcendental knowledge and cause engage in devotional activities, can we dovetail all the because the body, the nature of the soul, is an active principle. And if we cannot negate that, even by any artificial means or by some process, mechanical process, to negate that. No. How long? Because that is a very active principle and he has to be engaged. If he's not engaged in a spiritual, then he's forced to engage in Maya or the material energy. Yeah, either way, either you are in the therefore we are described as marginal, we are tatastha. Because we have that nature going either way. We are marginal. Krishna's tatastha shakti. So yeah, we have to become free from that. Yeah. Okay, we'll stop there. Time. I'm just going to. Today is also been Prabhupada's. We'll read the pastime of Prabhupada on the occasion of taking sannyas. That's in part of my class. We were requested there to speak about that. So it's interesting. This is Lilamrita by His Holiness Satswarup Maharaj. This chapter is called A Resident of Vrindavan. Yeah. To Prabhupada. One night Habai had a striking dream, the same dream he had had several times before. During his days as a householder, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati appeared just as Habai had known him, the tall, scholarly sannyasi, coming directly from the spiritual world, from Krishna's personal entourage. He called to Abai and indicated that he should follow. Repeatedly called in motion, he was asking Abai to take sannyas. Come, he urged, become a sannyasi. Abai woke in a state of wonder. He thought of this instruction as another feature of the original instruction Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati had given him at the first meeting in Calcutta, the same instruction that his spiritual master had later solidified in a letter: become an English preacher and spread Krishna consciousness throughout the Western world. Sannyas was for that end. Otherwise, why would his spiritual master have asked him to accept it? Abai reasoned that his spiritual master was saying, now take sannyas and you will actually be able to accomplish this mission. Formally, the time was not right. Of course, we know Abai at that time was still in our soul life. He had children and he wanted them to get married, to see them married before he becomes free from them, or to take this message of Bhaktisiddhanta. So all these things were going through his mind. He had to maintain his family. Abai deliberated cautiously. By accepting sannyas, a Vaishnava dedicates his body, mind and words totally to the service of the Supreme Person of Godhead, renouncing all other engagements. He was doing that already. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati had offered sannyas to his leading disciples so that they could continue his mission. They hadn't done it. Preaching in the West had proved perilous even for the Gaudiya Math's most recognized sannyasis. Because we know there was attempts for some of them to go abroad. Bhaktisiddhanta used so much of resources just to send them for the preaching mission, but they came back empty-handed. They said it's impossible. And of course Bhaktisiddhanta was very disappointed with that. Preaching in the West had proved perilous even for the Gaudiya Math's most recognized sannyasis. How could he, a mere householder, presume he could succeed where the others had failed? He was hesitant. The helpless, incapable feeling he had expressed in his Viraha Astaka was there. Now the spiritual master was beckoning him over all other considerations, even over natural humility. Now, although he was elderly and alone, the desire to preach just as his original master had preached remained within him, a fierce, though sometimes quietly expressed determination. The Vedic standard and example set by the previous acharyas was that if one wanted to lead a preaching movement, sannyas was required. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta had taken sannyas to facilitate his missionary work. Lord Chaitanya had taken sannyas to further the Sankirtan movement. Of course, Lord Chaitanya was the Supreme Person of Godhead. But when his young students had been disrespectful towards him, treating him as an ordinary man, he had taken sannyas, because the sannyas is automatically respected. Lord Chaitanya's acceptance of sannyas was a calculated tactic. As soon as he began traveling throughout India as a sannyasi, he immediately attracted thousands of followers to the Sankirtan movement. Knowing that many cheaters would accept the saffron dress and abuse and the respect given to sannyasis, Lord Chaitanya advised against accepting sannyas in the age of Kali. He knew that cheaters in the guise of sadhus would act immorally, accumulate funds for their own sense gratification, and make many followers simply to enhance their own prestige. Posing as swamis, they could cheat the public because the people in Kali Yuga are unable to follow the rules and regulations of sannyas. Lord Chaitanya recommended that they simply chant Hare Krishna. However, if a person could actually follow the rules, and especially if he had spread the Sankirtan movement, sannyas was necessary. A boy first had to approach one of his godbrothers for permission. He decided to turn to Bhakti Vilas Tirtha Maharaj, formerly Kunja Vihari, the leader of the Chaitanya Math in Calcutta. Abai still thought of the Chaitanya Math as the headquarters of his spiritual master's mission. During the heated legal disputes, The Gaudiya Math had been the most prized acquisition, and since 1948 it had been come under the legal ownership of Bhakti Vilas Tirtha Maharaj. Now, although each sannyasi had his own place or places, the Chaitanya Math and Bhakti Vilas Tirtha Maharaj legally represented the Gaudiya Math entity. Abai felt that if he were to take sannyas and go preach in America, he should give the Chaitanya Math the first opportunity to support his work. In April 1959, Abai wrote to Tirtha Maharaj, inquiring about sannyas as well as about the Chaitanya Math's printing some of his manuscripts. And since no one was going abroad, he volunteered to do so on behalf of the Chaitanya Math. Bhakti Vilas Tirtha Maharaj replied that Abai should first join the Chaitanya Math. He mentioned the strife that still lingered. Those who are acting against Chaitanya Math, they are motivated by the individual ambitions. Anyone who is against the Chaitanya Math, he said, was acting illogically against the instructions of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. So according to Tirtha Maharaj, the thing for Babai to do, the thing he had neglected to do for so many years, was to join the Chaitanya Math and act under his direction. Tirtha Maharaj mentioned several members of the Chaitanya Math who had recently accepted the sannyas order, and he said that Abai should also become one in time. He invited Abai to come reside at the Chaitanya Math. The house we have, there are rooms that are airy and well lit. We will treat you exclusively. There won't be any difficulty. We will take care that no inconveniences are caused. But as for printing books, we are eagerly waiting to print the books like Sandarbha, Vedanta, based on devotional service, and many other rare books by the Goswamis. First, we'll print them. Books written by you will be checked by the editorial staff, and if the funds can be raised, then they can be printed according to priority. The books will be printed only if they are favorable for the service of the Chaitanya Math. Therefore, if the fund is raised, then there is a plan to go abroad as well. Abai was not encouraged. The main difficulty he felt was the Chaitanya Math short of funds. Srila Prabhupada, I was working with my broken typewriter. I went to our Tirtha Maharaj. You give me a room and print my books. Give me some money, I will join you. I had thought, this is Guru Maharaj's institution. He did not say no, but the printing of books was a difficult task for him. He had no money. He was hardly collecting for maintaining. Printing of books was a big job, and there is no guarantee of sale. Without printing books and going to the West, sannyas did not have meaning for Abai. And who knew when Tirtha Maharaj would sanction his taking sannyas? There was no point in going to Calcutta just to reside in an airy, well-lit room. He had already in Vrindavan. Abai wrote back to Tirtha Maharaj, mentioning his direct order from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati to preach in English-speaking people. He wanted to go to the West right away, and he had thought that Chaitanya Math would welcome his offer. Both Abai and Tirtha Maharaj had their responsibilities, but perhaps they could work together to carry out the desire of the spiritual master. Abai asked Tirtha Maharaj to reconsider. On May 7, 1959, Bhakti Vilas Tirtha Maharaj wrote back. This is the letter. My suggestion is, don't make any hasty decisions for the time being. You stay with us and engage yourself in the service of the society, and then accept Tridanda sannyas. The purpose of accepting Tridanda is to serve the society. If that is your desire, then Sri Chaitanya Math will decide about your going to America to preach and make all the arrangements. It can never be the principle of the society to let one act according to his individual attempt or desire. The society will decide, after consulting with the heads, what is to be done by whom. This is what I want to say. First of all, it is necessary to identify oneself with the society in order to preach in America or in other foreign countries. It is important to have a dignified organization in the background. And secondly, it is necessary to establish oneself in India before going to preach in the foreign countries. Now it is that there are no conferences or meetings in the West as before. Communication is done through the media of television. Abai could understand the needs and priorities of the Gaudiya Chaitanya Math, but he could not allow them to overrule what he considered the highest mandate, preaching as Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati ordered. Abai had offered his services to the leaders of the Chaitanya Math, thinking that they might also see things his way. He thought that with the world's crying need for Krishna consciousness staring them in the face, they might see that this Abai Babu was convinced and enthusiastic, and so he should be sent right away with whatever required. But they had other priorities. Abai next turned to Keshava Maharaj in Mathura, and Keshava Maharaj told Abai to take sannyas immediately. After corresponding with Tirtha Maharaj, Abai felt some uncertainty about accepting sannyas. And now that he was being encouraged so strongly, he resisted. But Keshava Maharaj was insistent. Srila Prabhupada, I was sitting alone in Vrindavan writing. My godbrother insisted to me, Bhaktivedanta Prabhu, you should do it. Without accepting this renounced order of life, nobody can become a preacher. So he insisted. Not he insisted practically by, not insisted. Practically my spiritual master insisted. He wanted me to become a preacher. So he forced me through his godbrother, through this godbrother. You accept. So unwillingly, I accepted. Kesavaji's Gaudiya Math was located in the midst of one of Mathura's downtown bazaars. Its main entrance, an arched doorway, led into a courtyard, open in the sky through a metal grating above. The architecture was similar to that of the Yamsi Gopalji temple. The atmosphere was secluded, as in a monastery. Abai was a familiar, welcome figure there. He had lived here, written and studied in the library here, edited the Gaudiya Patrika, and donated the deity of Lord Chaitanya, who stood on the altar beside the deities of Radha and Krishna, Sri Sri Radha Vinod Vihari. But his visit during September of 1959 was not an ordinary one. He entered the mat dressed in white, Abai Babu, but he soon would be leaving dressed in saffron, a Swami. Shri Prabhupada ki. Abai had been living as a renunciate for 9 years. There was no need for him to observe a ceremony or to proclaim himself a sadhu by changing to saffron dress. But if it was the parampara system that a man take Tridanti sannyas at the end of his life, he was aware of the cheating sannyasis. Even in Vrindavan, he had seen so-called sadhus who did not preach but similarly spent their days hunting for chapatis. Some swamis of Vrindavan even indulged illicitly in what they had supposedly come here to reject, sex life. Such sannyasis were making a mockery of sannyas. And they were the caste Brahmin Goswamis who also lived like ordinary householders, running temples as a business to support their families, and accepting honor and donations from the public on the false basis of birth. Abai knew of these abuses of sannyas, but he also knew the real purpose of sannyas. Sannyas was for preaching. In the morning of September 17th, 1959, in the 50 by 25-foot deity room on the second floor of the Kesavji Math, a group of devotees sat before the deities of Radha Krishna and Lord Chaitanya. The deities were colorfully dressed in royal clothing and silver crowns. Radharani's right hand faced palm forward in benediction for the worshipper. At her side, her left hand held a flower for Krishna. Krishna stood like a dancer, placing his right leg in a casual tiptoe pose before his left, playing his long silver flute, which he held gracefully to his red lips. His long black hair reached down past his shoulders, and the garland of marigolds around his neck reached down to his knees. On his right stood the deity of Lord Chaitanya. His right arm raised, his left arm at his side, his body straight, feet together. He was a soft golden color, and he had a large eyes, a well-formed red mouth, and straight black hair down to his shoulders. One level below the deities were pictures of the spiritual masters in disciplic succession: Jagannath Das Babaji, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Gaura Kishore Das Babaji, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, and Bhakti Pragya Keshava Maharaj. Abai sat on a mat of kusa grass beside 90-year-old, was 90 years old, Sanatana, also to receive sannyas. That day, sitting opposite the two candidates, Narayan Maharaj, Keshava Maharaj, disciples prepared to conduct the ceremony of mantras and offerings of grains and ghee into the fire. Akinchana Krishnadas Babaji, Abai's godbrother, known for sweet singing, played mridanga and sang Vaishnava bhajans. Sitting on a raised asana, His Holiness Keshava Maharaj presided. Since there had been no notices or invitations, only the Math's few residents attended. Narayan Maharaj chanted the required mantras and then sat back silently while Keshava Maharaj lectured. Then, to everyone's surprise, Keshava Maharaj asked Abai to speak. Abai had not expected this. As he looked around at the gathering of devotees, he understood that the common language was Hindi. Only Keshava Maharaj and a few others spoke English, yet he knew he must speak in English. After Abai's speech, each initiate received the sannyas danda, the traditional hair-dye staff made of 4 bamboo rods, bound together and completely enwrapped in saffron cloth. They were given the sannyas garments, 1 piece of saffron cloth for a dhoti, 1 for a top piece, and 2 strips for underwear. They also received tulasi beads, neck beads, and the sannyas mantra. Keshava Maharaj said that Abai should now be known as Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj, and that Sanatan would be Muni Maharaj. After the ceremony, the 2 new sannyasis posed for a photo, standing on either side of the sannyas guru, who sat in a chair. Keshava Maharaj didn't impose any strictures on Abai. He simply encouraged him to go on preaching. Yet Abai knew that to become A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami did not mean merely that he was giving up family home comforts and business that he had done 5 years ago. Changing from white cloth to saffron cloth, from Abba Baba to Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj, had a special significance. It was the mandate he had required, the irrevocable commitment. Now it was only a matter of time before Bhaktivedanta Swami would travel to the west as Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati had ordained. This was Bhaktivedanta Swami's realization of his new sannyas status. The Gaudiya Patrika's account of the sannyas initiation included a biographical sketch of Sri Srimad Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj, listing the major events of his life. The article concluded, seeing his enthusiasm and ability to write articles in Hindi, English, and Bengali, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Maharaj had given him the instruction to take Tridanti sannyas. For nearly 1 year he had been ready to accept sannyas. In the month of Bhadra, on the day in which Vishwarup accepted sannyas, Bhaktivedanta Swami at the Sri Keshavaji Gaudiya Math accepted sannyas from the founder of the Vedanta Samiti, Bhakti Pragya, Keshava Maharaj. Seeing him accept his ashram of renunciation, seeing this pastime for accepting the renounced order of life, we have attained great affection and enthusiasm. He is divine grace, Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. So this is a wonderful pastime of Srila Prabhupada biography. I hope that was very encouraging for Raghunath Bhattas. Haribol. Is there any questions or comments?